Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I am your host, Dr. Chem, and I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through today's topic. We are diving deep into what I consider a really cinematic journey, a complete lecture on the evolution of electrochemical biosensors. We'll be covering the whole shebang: enzyme electrodes, glucose sensors, DNA biosensors, immunosensors, and those incredible modern wearables. This is the technology that literally bridges the gap between our biology and our electronic devices. So if you've ever found yourself wondering how a smartwatch, or maybe a tiny flexible patch, could potentially read the chemical secrets hidden inside your body, well, you are definitely in the right place. Let's just jump right in. I want you to imagine a world where you never have to sit in a clinic waiting for a painful needle stick just to figure out what's going on inside your own body. What if your skin could just constantly test your blood? For decades, the absolute gold standard has been episodic venous blood sampling, the classic blood draw. But here's the thing, a single blood draw is just a static snapshot. It's frozen in time. It doesn't tell us what your levels were an hour ago or what they're going to be an hour from now. And when we're dealing with really critical life or death diagnostic uncertainties, those blind spots, they can be incredibly dangerous.
So this creates a massive gap in our current medical system. When we rely purely on episodic blood draws, especially in cases like acute coronary syndromes, we run into a huge problem. Between 15 and 40% of patients present with what we call a clinical gray zone. Their cardiovascular biomarkers, like troponin, aren't clearly normal, but they also aren't definitively screaming heart attack. This usually means prolonged hospital stays and repeat blood draws just to try and spot a trend. But if we flip the script to continuous wearable monitoring, we get dynamic, high-resolution temporal profiles. This is absolutely crucial. It's the only way to differentiate a sudden, acute release of bad biomarkers from just a chronic, harmless background elevation. And we get to see it all in real time.
Okay, moving into Section 1, the birth of the biosensor, from concept to commercialization.
The historical evolution of this tech is just a brilliant problem-solution arc. Back in 1962, a scientist named Leland C. Clark stood up at the New York Academy of Sciences and proposed a totally groundbreaking idea, the very first enzyme electrode. By 1975, that wild idea was actually commercialized as the YSI-23A blood glucose analyzer. This was a massive game-changing leap for diabetic care because it allowed for really fast glucose assays. Fast forward a bit to 1999, and we see the GlucoWatch biographer hit the scene, which was one of our earliest real attempts at wearable chemical sensing.
To appreciate how far we've come, think about traditional manufacturing methods. Subtractive manufacturing using rigid silicon wafers, grinding them down, thermal oxidation. That stuff is great for computer chips, but it's terrible for human skin. The real breakthrough happened when we shifted to alternative additive manufacturing. We're talking 3D printing, aerosol jet printing, roll-to-roll printing. These techniques unlocked flexible, stretchable devices. Actually, it's wild to think about, but we are literally printing electronic biosensors onto materials that can bend and flex perfectly with our moving bodies. Which brings us to Section 2, chemistry to electricity translators, or what I like to call the art of transduction. These tiny devices literally have to speak two languages fluently, the language of our biology and the language of electronics. Let's break down how this chemical to electrical translation actually works using the most famous example, glucose sensing. Step 1. The target molecule, glucose, interacts with a specific enzyme immobilized on the sensor, called glucose oxidase. Step 2. This catalytic reaction produces hydrogen peroxide. Step 3. We apply a tiny voltage to the sensor, and that hydrogen peroxide undergoes electrochemical oxidation, which releases electrons. Boom. We've just translated a biological sugar into a measurable electrical current. It's elegant and simple. The more glucose present, the more electrons flow.
Now, the absolutely crucial part is capturing that electrical signal perfectly, without any noise. In a typical screen-printed setup, you'll see a 3-electrode configuration. Why 3? Well, in an older, simpler 2-electrode setup, the natural resistance in the fluid creates a voltage drop. It's a massive experimental error known as the IR drop, and it really messes with your data. To eliminate this, modern biosensors use a working electrode, where the actual chemistry happens, a reference electrode to maintain a perfectly stable baseline potential, and a counter electrode to supply the current. This 3-part team isolates a pristine, perfect signal, making it the absolute gold standard for these electroanalytical techniques.
All right, moving to Section 3, wearables and interstitial fluid. This is the holy grail of monitoring. Let's build the case for dermal interstitial fluid, or ISF for short. ISF is basically the nutrient-rich liquid that bathes all the cells just beneath your skin. Compare that to venous blood for a second.
Accessing blood is invasive, and because blood is packed with coagulation factors, any continuous sensor you try to leave in a vein is going to clot up and fail pretty quickly. But dermal ISF, it's minimally invasive to reach, and here's the kicker. It has virtually zero coagulation factors. It won't clot. That single fact makes ISF the absolute holy grail for continuous, reliable, long-term wearable tracking.
Of course, you're probably thinking, okay, doc, but how do we get to that fluid without it hurting? Well, the brilliant solution lies in microneedle arrays. These are microscopic, hollow needles. They are precisely engineered to painlessly bypass the dead outer layer of the epidermis, reaching right down into the dynamic fluid matrix of the dermis. Because they are incredibly short, they don't reach the deeper nerve endings that actually register pain, yet they give us direct open access to this massive reservoir of cardiovascular biomarkers, allowing us to extract and analyze data continuously right on the surface of your arm.
And the sheer scale of what we can achieve once we tap into these biofluids is just staggering. By combining that flexible nanofabrication we talked about with advanced transduction, we are way past just measuring glucose. We are talking about contact lenses that sense biomarkers in your tears, epidermal patches that analyze the exact composition of your sweat, smart mouth guards, integrated wristbands, the whole 9 yards. We can simultaneously map biophysical pressure, electrophysical heart rhythms, and complex biochemical metabolites, all seamlessly woven into your everyday life.
That takes us to Section 4, Next-Gen DNA and Immunosensors. We're going way beyond simple enzymes here. When we want to track larger, more complex biomarkers like C-reactive protein or the heart attack indicator troponin, enzymes just don't cut it. We have to transition to affinity-based sensors. Traditionally, we use immunosensors. These use antibodies, kind of like your own immune system, to catch specific proteins. They're highly established for sure, but they are also incredibly fragile. A swing in temperature or pH can cause them to denature, basically unfold and break, which is a huge problem on a hot, sweaty wearable. So what's the upgrade? Aptosensors. Aptamers are synthetic, programmable strands of DNA or RNA that are designed to fold into very specific 3D shapes to grab their targets. They offer unbelievable stability and versatility, making them so much more robust for continuous, real-world monitoring. And this leads us to what is arguably the most futuristic sci-fi tool currently sitting in our diagnostic arsenal, the CRISPR-E DNA sensor. Now, you've almost certainly heard of CRISPR as this revolutionary gene editing tool, right? Well, scientists have brilliantly repurposed it. Instead of editing genes inside a living cell, this sensor takes CRISPR's highly specific target cleavage activity and uses it to literally cut a signaling probe attached to an electrode. When the target disease biomarker binds to it, CRISPR acts like a pair of molecular scissors, snipping the probe and fundamentally altering the rate of electron transfer.
The analytical power of this system will honestly blow your mind. By utilizing Cas9 and Cas12a systems, these biosensors achieve what we call femtomolar detection limits. To put that into perspective for you, that is basically the equivalent of finding one specific single drop of water hidden inside thousands of Olympic-sized swimming pools. Literally. And it manages to do this without needing any of those slow, complex, enzymatic amplification steps we used to rely on. Even crazier, this CRISPR-enhanced sensor can determine the presence of a single genetic mutation even when the overall concentration of the sample is a total mystery. It is completely redefining the limits of point-of-care diagnostics.
So, as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative question to chew on. Think about everything we've covered. With painless microneedles constantly sampling our interstitial fluid and flexible printed electrodes utilizing synthetic DNA and CRISPR to spot disease molecules at femtomolar levels, are we truly ready for the era of predictive precision medicine? We are literally standing on the precipice of a monumental shift in human health. We're moving away from reactive sick care, where you only go to the doctor after the damage is already done, and we're moving toward proactive, real-time health mastery, driven by continuous data streaming straight from our own skin. It's been amazing diving into this with you. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I will see you in the next explainer.